days. We're going to talk about.
Yo.
Oh, that okay. That's a good one. Yeah, maybe I'm just an optimist for my own detriment. But yes,
Oh, that's okay.
so we are here. This is honestly surreal for me because I don't even know where to start with you, man. Like I feel like I got into your stuff way before I ever like even talked about you online, and then it was music that got you to even like respond to me. You were like, yeah, this thing. And I don't even remember what the fuck it was about. And then, yeah, I just like got really inspired by one of your posts, wrote a column in Voices about it. That really took me to a whole other stratosphere now. And I'm doing things in wrestling. So honestly, in a weird way, Daniel Makabe, you really I owe you a lot actually for
Wow.
that. Yeah, dude.
Well, you're welcome, I guess. Yeah. Happy to. You know what? I mean, like, this sounds like I'm blowing smoke up on my own ass, but honestly, it's starting to get quite fulfilling, and it never was before, really. But this is probably just part of aging and not being an active pro wrestler anymore. But it's starting to become more fulfilling. The amount of times I get so many messages from young people and people who are just starting. A lot of new people breaking into wrestling who tell me that watching my work inspires them to do this. Like literally all over the world. People from Europe, Asia, all over North America, obviously, and then also I have my own local crew that I'm constantly working with and trying to inspire, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, it is got to be kind of weird. And I'm glad that you are, embracing it. The idea that you're going to be one of those guys. And it's cool to see that you already are, that like your stuff's going to hold up. Like you're going to be a guy that people, oddly enough, as a guy that was a big tape trade guy, a big DVD guy, like you're that guy for these youngins, man. It's really cool to see, actually.
Yeah, I'm not for everyone, and I never was going to be, right, and that was never the goal, really. Um, but for the people that like I am for, like I'm really their guy, like
Yeah.
I I'm it's funny you brought up like music as being kind of the entry point for us having, more of a dialogue or whatever.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I definitely saw myself as like a cult, um like band that like the people who know about that band and like pay attention and collect bootlegs and multiple pressings and that sort of stuff, because that's how I am and was towards certain bands. I was kind of like that wrestler for people who are real like diehards for a certain type of wrestling, right? So yeah, I mean it's pretty cool, I guess, in hindsight. of
Right.
that
Like,
that that's going to be my legacy, I guess, right? So yeah.
yeah, and I mean, hey, at least you have a legacy versus a lot of people that you have been around or known that are just complete like trash bag people, right? So that's the other positive. I think a lot of people are honing in on is, hey, this guy's not a problem. He's, for everyone that watches him. He's very open and loves everybody in that way. And so we can enjoy Daniel Makabe's career with no guilt.
That is true. That is
Yeah.
true. Yes, I'm thankfully not problematic. So
Right? Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if I say like you're welcome for not being a piece of shit. I just kind of tried to be a good person, but yeah.
that's a good thing to be. Yeah. Anyways,
I mean, you're right. Yeah, so I'm kind of pride myself on these, I guess, if it's a pride thing, on not being just a normal interview. Like I've my whole thing of doing these is I want to be the person that brings up weird indie shit that you did, or like, we will talk about the backyard days very shortly, but like that's what I want to be. I want, like, that's all I meant by, like, I want to make you feel young again, right? Like I want you to be like,
You're
oh fuck.
trying to Nardwar me? Is that what we're gonna?
Yes, that, what's funny? I was talking to my best friend, shout out Gabe Edmondson. I'm just gonna throw him out there, brother. I know this kid's in second grade. Uh, I was telling him, I was like, what is my thing, whatever. And of course, he's my buddy, so he's hyping me up. And he straight up was like, "You're like fucking Nardwar for wrestling." And I was like, "Relax. I don't think I'll ever be that deep of a deep cutter. However, I don't think I'll ever out a member of Slipknot in the '90s. You know what I mean?" But
Yeah,
I'd like to think I'm a fun time. I've had people tell me like that's fun. I'll say this, and him, Rev Dan Wilson, like
yeah.
keeps putting me over. Like, dude, that interview I did with you was the shit. I'm not going to do a Rev impression because I'll butcher it, but so that's what I want to be. And to that point, I'm not going to be like, what got you into wrestling? Because for one, I'm a nerd. I already know that. You told me it was like early '90s WWF. What match though did you watch? And in your head, either it was okay, this is attainable physically for me, or just you were so enthralled, you were like, I got to be part of this business.
That is a good question. Hmm. I don't know if it was any particular match, or just sort of I kind of gradually worked my way in there because I never really had any aspirations to do this. Like I started watching wrestling when I was 6, and I loved to do it, and I had the WWF, they had the little pillow kind of buddies, kind of guys, right? So
Yeah.
I had matches with those things, like in my mom's living room, with in there's pictures of me where I'm just straight up in like white underpants with gum boots on and masking tape on my wrists, right? So it was from a pretty young age that I was like, oh yeah, I love this. But I never really had any aspiration of doing it until, I mean, it was a gradual thing, right? So I started going to independent wrestling at a pretty young age. I started going to local independent shows when I was 13. Um, and like wouldn't miss a show. Like every month I was going to ECCW shows here in Greater Vancouver. And then that's kind of how I met my crew of guys, who I started backyarding with. And then it just kind of gradually, it's like, well, this is fun. This is just what we do. And then I don't know who came up with the idea of like reaching out to one of the local promotions, and we would rent their ring like on a monthly basis. So we'd have our weekly backyard shows in our homemade ring that was like literally in the woods. Um, and then once a month, we would go to a wrestling school and have like the equivalent of a pay per view, uh, like the big matches for that month's, whatever storylines or whatever we had, right? And I was just content with that. Like even when we were doing that, I wasn't thinking like, oh yeah, now this is going to translate to working independence or whatever. And then it was after we did that for like little over a year, that the promotion, which like doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, it was called All Star Wrestling, but that's a name that's been used to death in this area. Like starting way back
Yeah.
in the late '70s and the early '80s, Al Tomko ran All Star Wrestling, which the only real notable name that anyone would know of who came out of that is Mauro Ranallo, was a teenage like heel manager in the '80s incarnation of All Star Wrestling here in Greater Vancouver. And then there was another incarnation in the late '90s, early 2000s, which is the group that I came up with. And then there was another incarnation that started probably around 2010 that still runs today here in Greater Vancouver. Actually, there's a clip of one of their shows that's going viral for not great reasons this weekend. I don't know if you saw it, but
I will if I have it.
I'll yeah, we don't need to go into it, but
Yeah.
anyways, so that's a name that's been thrown around forever in this area, All Star Wrestling. So I mean, we rented their ring, and then after doing that for a year, they're like, "Hey, come train." And then it's sort of like, "Oh, okay, I guess I can work independence now." And then sort of didn't for a long time, like 10 years, and then
Yeah.
slowly worked my way kind of back into it. So I have the weirdest career trajectory of any independent wrestler ever, probably.
Easily.
Yeah, I kind of really do, but no regrets, because had I stuck with independent wrestling when I first broke in the early 2000s, I would have flamed out in like 2 years and I wouldn't be here now. And it was like, cuz it wasn't fun, and it was
Yeah.
just such a different atmosphere, and the locker rooms were so different, and the fan bases were so different. And yeah, so I'm happy I did things the way that I did them, and they turned out pretty good. So yeah, but I that was a very roundabout way of not answering your question. There was really no set match. There was stuff that I loved watching, and by the time that I was training, Ring of Honor started basically a year before I started training. So, I mean, we were already like all in on me and my crew were watching Ring of Honor and Chikara and CCW and IWA Mid South. And we were buying stuff regularly from Smart Mark Video and trading with each other and trading with people that we met online or at local independent shows. And we were very much inspired by that, but also inspired by a lot of like 90s Japanese stuff already at that point. And that's kind of what we wanted to do here on Independence. But because we were seeing that it was being done on the East Coast, but it really wasn't a thing here. And it wouldn't be a thing here for like another decade, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why we stopped doing independence and we went back to backyarding, is because we're like, well, this is the style of wrestling we want to do. And it doesn't work here, but we can do it on a much smaller scale and have a lot more fun and basically be our own boss and be our own booker and be the wrestlers that we wanted to be, right? And that's sort of what we did for a very long time, maybe entirely too long, if I'm being honest. We were working backyard shows when I was in my late 20s and even into
Hey,
my
man.
30s, I think. But and that's sort of what led to me getting back in independence, when it was sort of like, okay, maybe we can do this again on more of a scale. But anyways, that's besides the point.
Yeah. And for people that weren't around back in that era, we're talking about the early 2000s, and especially in Canada, like it was a totally different world to what people like understand American indie wrestling as being back then. Like that was not, and even just for America, by the way, that was a Northeast thing. I think people really forget that the indie scene that everyone knows was in a very concentrated, small area geographically. And you had IWA Mid South, but that was an outlier. And I mean, you saw the crowds, they weren't drawing with what they were doing, but thank God Ian was running those shows and they are what they are. But that was a really smart move for you, I'll be honest, because I, like you said, I think you would have been beaten down. And just knowing what little I know of how the Canadian indies were at the time, like unless you were like big, muscled up dude that was gonna get signed by WWE as almost close to a guarantee, they weren't really gonna use you, and there wasn't a cohesive scene, and there was no like distribution method outside of where you were. It would have been very difficult for your style and what you were doing and what you wanted to do to break out, and I just don't know that that would have even been possible at the time.
It wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, there were plenty of people here that I could have had some okay matches with, right? Um, but yeah, no, I mean, distribution was so different. Obviously, the internet was around, but it wasn't nearly as powerful as it is now. There wasn't any kind of streaming video like there is now. Live streaming events, or even just like this kind of quick turnaround on like live to tape events just didn't really exist. Um, yeah, and we're and still like Canada doesn't have a cohesive indie scene now, really, right? I mean,
No.
same can't be said for America, right? Like America's
Mhm.
gigantic too. Canada's even bigger,
Yeah.
but and there's just more space between all of our little scenes. We've got little pockets, right? Honestly, Vancouver is more a part of a greater scene with Seattle and Portland and surrounding areas, right? And that's
Mhm.
honestly where I made my name and got out there again, was working so regularly in Seattle, so much so that when I did start popping up on the East Coast, everyone assumed I was American initially. So but yeah, I mean it's just the way things were. And like even nowadays, even with the way that the world is and how connected everyone is, it's still really hard for independent wrestlers here in the Northwest to break out of this scene, because we are so far away from like the next closest scene, you know?
Yeah.
Which, you know, like there's stuff going on in like Northern California, Southern California, Vegas, but like those are all, that's like a 15 to 20 hour drive from here, depending on where you're going in California or Nevada. So, um, and like the other side of stuff in Ontario, Quebec, or whatever, that's like a 5 hour flight. So, um, if you like really want to make it and you're coming up in the Northwest, you have to go somewhere else realistically.
Yeah.
Um, I got very lucky. Like one, this was never going to be my job, and I never wanted it to be my job. But I just got over enough doing my niche type of thing that I made myself so in demand. Certainly, like to certain promoters who really appreciated what I did and regularly started, bringing me in and getting the ball rolling, right? But um it's hard to get flights paid for out of the West Coast, honestly. Um, yeah, it's
It's
just
so much, man. It's so
yeah,
much
it's
money.
we're just so far removed from the rest of North America. So
Well, and it's like you got the kiss of death going for you. You're all the way up there in the West Coast, and it's Canada. So it's like all these things that a promoter is going to have to juggle, and like that I think is another testament to like how big of a deal it was for you to like break out and get into that Chattanooga scene, man. Because like that should have if you wrote it up, right, and everything just without all the little variables, it's like, how the hell is that going to ever happen? How would that guy ever? What are you talking about? And it just all came together so perfectly. But obviously, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit there. DVDVR. I feel like of any wrestler that has like broken into the business, you seem as synonymous with that place as anybody. Do you even remember when you got on the site?
it was the year 2000. I know that. I don't remember exactly when in 2000s. Um, and I think I just discovered it. Like I discovered the reviews, right? I was reading the reviews, and then I slowly trickled over to the message board, and I was an annoying child on the message board. I was 16, and
Yeah.
yeah, I would hate to see some of the posts that I made. And I still keep what my screen name was close to the my
Yeah.
in my pocket, just because it was embarrassing. And there's a few people who know what it was, but
Does Nicole
uh
Matthews finally know? That's the real breaking news.
yeah, I did eventually tell her. I did eventually tell her. Yeah, that
Okay.
was like a running bit about keeping it from her, right? She was
Yeah.
never on DVD, but she was on Crazy Max, and like which I always associate as more of like a tape trading form, but and she had a similarly cringy screen name that she shared with me.
Nice.
So but yeah, yeah. So I started posting on Death Valley Driver, and that's how. I met a lot of contacts through there. I met, you know, my friends who I ended up, backyarding with in early 2001, Scott Henson, who he was posting on there and he was doing his own tape trading website and he had a backyard promotion and we started going to independence together and backyarding and getting trained and you know being friends for over 20 years. So that's how I met him. Obviously, this was years later in life, but I ended up meeting, Phil Schneider and those crew of guys who are now in correlation with Action Wrestling, putting on the series of Dean shows, which the next one's coming up in September, and it looks already to be very cool. So, and
Oh yeah.
obviously, I was the main event on the first one, and the first one really kind of spurned out from having chats with Phil about wanting to bring the Battle Arts guys to North America and not really having um, the promoter know-how how to. Neither of us had ever promoted a show before, so in comes Matt with Action Wrestling, and he really helped get you know the ball rolling, where Phil and Eric and JR and all those guys are a lot of the creative force behind it, but the logistics, a lot of that falls on Matt. So I'm thankful that all those guys are putting these shows together. So yeah, I mean, that came from there. I met a very good friend of mine named Simon Spikert, who lives in Edmonton, who was a regular poster on that forum. I ended up we did our own kind of Death Valley Driver copycat of uh, of writing a review. I mean, that just shows you the legacy that Dean Rasmussen had, was that
Oh
everyone wanted to be like him and write like him, much to our own detriment because none of us could be
yeah.
him or write like him. So I mean, that stuff is still up on Wayback Machine. It's so cringy. I have it bookmarked, but yeah, we ran our own website of just Canadians writing about the wrestling that we liked. It has like kind of a really unfortunately dated title. I'm not going to admit out loud. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I was all in on Death Valley Driver at a very young age, and honestly, it was one of the most influential. Beyond all these influences that I've just mentioned, of all the people that I've met and the connections that I made, and like literally, I met one of my best friends in the world, and we went to wrestling school together, and all that. Um, but it like truly opened me to a bunch of wrestling that I never would have seen otherwise. I never would have heard of Battle Arts if not for them and how much they loved that promotion and that style of work. And it's clearly the most influential style of wrestling on what I do or what I did. And so I have them to be thankful for introducing me to that. So yeah,
Yeah, I will fully admit that I had to really wean myself off the Deanisms in my
yeah,
writing. I was like, I can't just be Dean. There's only Dean. So yeah, that guy, and very similar to you, found DVD from the reviews. I really was not on the forum because I don't know how, for years I didn't even know it existed. And then
mm,
finally one day I looked at the part of the screen I never looked at, I guess, and was like, forums. Hmm. And then of course I saw the forums because it was
yeah,
like 2005 and I went, whoa, God. And was so intimidated. And now I kick myself because I'm like, man, I should have just put myself out there. As you know, though, it was a completely different world, man. Like it was very intimidating. I mean, I can't remember who it was that was talking about just like, and they were in the business. It might have been Matt Griffin. It was somebody that was like, you go into that live chat that they would have, and like you were scared to talk in there because Dean's in there, Phil's in there, and you're like, I don't want to look stupid. And it's like, in hindsight, it's like, come on, it's just fucking wrestling, right? But that's the cachet that Dean had, and then of course Phil, and all of them. But it's really really cool to see that, and I think that your generation of wrestler was the very beginnings, and really kind of the beginnings of the beginnings of the internet wrestler in the sense of like getting your inspiration and getting all these contacts through the internet, you know? Like that's super cool.
And now that's like honestly so much of the business is that, right? Like you still occasionally get people who like come at it from more of an athletic background, but like so much of people breaking in on the independents now are people who are fans first and foremost, right? And
Yeah,
and a lot of them are fans of really niche stuff. So yeah,
thank God.
yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah. One of them's a great example, and I'll just shout him out as Jaya Jewel,
yep,
who I was talking to in DMs, and he's sending me like 666 fucking matches, and I'm just like, this is beautiful. Like, and I think that's why you see such a varied style kind of going throughout the business. I know that like famously Jonathan Gresham had the whole comment, and I totally honestly agree with him about the homogenization of pro wrestling and how
yeah,
bad that really is, and how it really has gotten further than people realize if they're not inside and all that stuff. But I do think there's enough young talent that are bucking that I don't know that that'll ever be like a real concern, at least in the immediate. I do think there is a lot of lasting damage though, especially culturally. Like places like Mexico and Japan, it's like it's a shame to see.
for sure, for sure. Yeah,
And you had
I,
mentioned like battle arts, right? Like I feel like that is a unique promotion that I don't know would have gotten off the ground anywhere else but Japan.
oh yeah, not really. And like I don't think it would ever work. You can do like one-off kind of matches here in that style, but like I don't think you could ever do a full promotion of that. And even like we see, you know, the closest analog to it in North America are the Josh Barnett Bloodsport shows, and like even those have kind of run their course. And I think
Yeah.
they even realize it, and that's why they're not doing them anymore. But you know, like a match here or there on a show, especially you know, like produce is obviously showing that they're willing to promote, you know, those kind of matchups, and like you know, as of when we're recording this, there's a show tonight, and it's got multiple matches that would fit in that style of show. Obviously, Carl Malenko being on the show helps because he was a battle arts guy and a Fujiwara Gumi guy, and Barnett is wrestling Andy Williams, which I think that match is wild. I'm really excited to
Yeah.
see that. Um, so yeah, you know, it still works, but like from my experience, it works better in Japan. Obviously, it still works in Europe. They kind of get it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Uh, so that style will never fully go away, but like it'll never be the most popular thing going ever.
I know,
So
and it's a shame because it is my favorite. Like legitimately, I think this is gonna be a weird one. I think my two favorite styles that I'm coming to like realize as I get older is that shoot style, and then
sure.
oddly enough, deathmatch wrestling. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, I feel like we're like right now we're on the cusp of like a deathmatch like revolution.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, all these young talents coming in and they are like gung ho. And I think that's really the essence of wrestling that I love is regardless of the style, regardless of who it is. And you're a great example of it, in my opinion, of just putting 100% of yourself into it and just committing. That's so key is committing. Don't go back on it. You got to commit once you get going.
Yeah. And I think there's a bunch of similarities between those things. Obviously, they're both like very visceral and both have their own kind of version of just like being rooted in violence, you know, like pure unadulterated violence. Um, One involves like more technique than the other, but the other one maybe, you know, involves a little bit more um I don't know, bravery, I guess. I mean, I'm someone who
Yeah.
did very, very little in the way of any kind of hardcore or deathmatch stuff. Occasionally dabbled in it, But it never was for me. But hats off to anyone who it is for. And I do like watching it. I'm not saying I don't.
Nice.
I like watching it when it's done well. When it's done like anything else, there's certain things that are when they're done poorly, they're so bad.
Yeah.
I think bad deathmatch wrestling is really bad. Bad lucha is legitimately the worst wrestling on earth.
Yeah.
So having been on shows with like local poorly trained luchadors, oh my god, it's the worst. It's truly the worst. Um, but it also like that requires so much skill, and then when it's done well, it's like, oh my god, this is amazing, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, not that I was ever skilled enough to be a luchador, but yeah, I knew my lane and I stuck to it. But yeah, anyways.
Well, I was gonna say, and this is a good place to talk about it. You know, you talked about you started in the backyard, and so of course, oddly enough, what got me on this tip was like months ago. I watched your Joseph Montecillo interview that you did, and you had discussed everything. And for whatever reason, that got me on the YouTube machine, and I found a match that you had in 2005.
Okay.
It is the BYW match of the year for 2005. So let's put
Oh,
some
that's a good.
respect on
That's
this.
a really good match that still holds up
Dude,
well, I think.
it holds up so well. You against Matt Schalk,
Matt Shock, yeah,
brother.
Matt Shock from Cincinnati, Ohio. Garbage everywhere wrestling. Yeah.
Brother, you had the fucking MySpace hair going. You fucking were fearless in this shit. You were going through like every door in fucking Canada, dude.
Yeah.
That
I
ruled.
I love that match. That match still holds up, I think. It's got like a good mix of everything. It builds well. The version that's on YouTube is like kind of just like like a single cam
Yeah.
whatever. There's like a pro edited multicam version of that. I have it on DVD in the other room.
Fuck.
Um and I've been wanting to get it online. We did a thing as well for that DVD that I've never done before and I've never seen anyone else do before, and we put it on there as an Easter egg. So the DVD was actually done by Matt Schock, who was a like
Okay.
very technically adept kind of guy, and he filmed all sorts of little extras and stuff that he put on the DVDs as like Easter eggs. So like, you remember when you used to like hit random directions on DVD screens and like some random thing would highlight and you go, "Oh, what's this?" And you click it and
Sadly, yes, I
you'd
do.
get a random featurette or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
he did all sorts of little things like that. And one of the features that he put on the DVD that show was the main event of was we literally filmed us putting that match together, like from start to finish in
Dude.
my mother's guest bedroom, and where him and his then fiance were staying that weekend, and so and it's literally like us discussing like, okay, we'll do this, and then like cuts to the match and shows you exactly like we did it as we were, and I would love I should dig that up and watch it again because I remember that just
Yeah,
being
dude, you should.
kind of a neat thing. So, um, famously, and I discussed this with the man earlier this year when AEW was in Vancouver for the pay per view Dynasty. I think that's what the show was in April.
Yeah.
Um, I went to it. I should remember, but
Dude, there's so many names and shit. Like,
I
come
don't
on.
know, right? And I admittedly do not follow their product that closely. I mean, anytime I
Me
watch their
either.
shows, I enjoy myself well enough, but I was able to spend some time with Chris Hero that weekend when he was in town, and we were discussing it because I wrestled Matt Schock in the main event of Backyard Fest 8, which is the match that you would have seen from 2005, and in the main event of Backyard Fest 3, which would have been in the summer of 2000. Is that right? Is my math right? That sounds right.
It should
Uh,
be, yes, because that was 2007. So if we go backward,
no,
yeah, we should
2005.
be at 2000.
2005 back to
2005.
8 minus 5 is 3. Yeah, I think
I
that's what it
can't
is.
fucking do math, my friend. I'm so sorry.
I'm really good at math. That's my secret skill, is doing like
My wife is too. She's the math person in this
really
equation.
basic, like arithmetic. I can do it in my head
Yeah.
really quickly, but
I'm a
um,
fucking idiot. So go ahead.
that's fair. I drive my wife insane with all the math things that I do. But um, the main event of Backyard Fest 3 in the summer of 2000 was Matt Schock versus Chris Hero. And so yeah, we were discussing our mutual run-ins with Matt Schock, and just like how that all came to be. Because like I sort of knew how Hero, because Hero was also on Backerfest 1 back in 1998, and it was the summer that he broke into the business, and he didn't really know the difference between backyard wrestling and indies, so he worked Backyard Fest, and then not knowing that it was like a faux pas, and then was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not allowed to do this. And then a couple years later, they reached out to him to main event against Chris Hero or against Matt Schock, and he did it. But like they paid his rate basically. Like
Oh my god.
he he just took a booking. He took it like a booking. He didn't just do it
Hell
for free.
yeah.
So I'd always wondered how that had come to be. Um, so yeah, I mean that was in the kind of really the heart of us being like full thrown into the backyard community. There was obviously the Backyard Wrestling Link, which was our forum that literally had people posting from all over the world. And that's how we kind of made the connections that the previous summer, my crew, we traveled to just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and we wrestled on Backyard Fest 7 and met a lot of people there. And then from then on, we were all over the East Coast, and people would come here for shows regularly. Eventually, we went to England and worked some shows later on that decade. I was on backyard shows with the teenage Will Ospreay, um,
That's
and
so wild to me.
some other people. I mean, he's clearly the biggest name that I ever was on shows with. But a lot of people who are still stalwarts of the independent scene now that I met through backyard wrestling, and then years later, ended up getting booked on shows outside of my region because of knowing people through backyarding, and ending up working for Beyond Wrestling in the East Coast, and working for freelance in Chicago, and meeting some other connections of people that I knew through backyarding. So, or people who I didn't even really know through backyarding, but like secretly lurked on that message board. Like Eric Stevens famously lurked on that message board, and so
Yeah.
years later when I got to wrestle Stevens, it was just like a very cool like full circle, and like he got all the references of people from that community and stuff, and got to kind of talk to him about it. And so yeah, I mean I still have some of those guys are like they're running like reunion shows now. They're running a show in September, like that, like I don't want to blow people's spots up, but like
Yeah.
people who still work the indies are like working on backyard
That's
shows
fucking
again,
amazing.
because they're like, I just want to have fun with my friends, right? And like honestly, if it wasn't such a pain in the ass for me to get to these shows, they're in like rural Pennsylvania.
Right.
um I yeah, I wish that it was more accessible for me, because I would love to go there and probably not wrestle, but like even just hang out and be a part of the community again. And it's nice that the way the internet is, I'm able to like connect with some of those people again, and even if it's just chatting on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. But yeah, no, that part of our lives is never to be forgotten, and it's pretty cool that I got
Thank
to.
God.
Yeah, I mean it's like, I mean, I just posted about it yesterday because it was the anniversary, but like I wrestled Tony Deppen 7 years ago in Chattanooga, and he's someone that I first met on a backyard show in 2007 in
Right.
rural Pennsylvania. I saw him wrestle his brother in a 12 by 12 ring in some dude's really scuzzy looking backyard, and it was like, oh, crazy. And then 12 years later, I had a match with him in a gymnasium in Daisy, Tennessee, that like literally was. I think it's like 1A and 1B. It's obviously wrestling Tim Thatcher in 2017. that gets people talking about me, but it's then wrestling Tony Deppen in 2019 that like really starts to blow things up for me. So
Oh yeah, and I mean it's so crazy, and it's wild to me too, the whole backyard thing, because I don't know how I totally avoided it, and not on purpose, but just like I had no idea how big it was until honestly, I think it was watching an interview with Osprey when he came over, and I think it was like one of those weird high spots things at a PWG weekend. And I just remember he just offhandedly was like, "Yeah, I was a yarder, man," and like blah blah. And I think he referenced you, in fact, and was like, "Yeah, like I met Makabe and I met Deppen and all these guys," and I'm just like sitting there like, "What?" I had no idea. It makes complete sense. I was a huge mark for the fucking backyard wrestling tapes. It
yeah.
totally makes sense to me. I don't know how I didn't follow that path, but I guess I was on DVD-VR instead.
Well, yeah, and it was its own kind of separate, parallel
Yeah,
thing, So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy how influential it was on my life. Um, yeah, in a roundabout way. So
I get it only from a very, very different way because I come from a weird wrestling subgenre, e-fetting. So it's very similar in terms of like the people that were into it are fucking they like you'll never forget those people.
yeah,
However, like you're like, ooh, do I ask if they're an e-fetter? They seem like one. Like they're,
I briefly dabbled when I was in high school before I started backyarding. I did a little
yeah.
bit of it, but I never really stuck with it that much. I did a little bit of um like I don't even know what the current ones are because I know there are some current like simulators. Like I know Extreme Warfare Revenge was a big one for people. I
Oh
never
God, that was my life.
I never played that one, but I really was into one called TNM. TNM 7 was a and we actually had like a Death Valley Driver League uh
Nice.
of all the people and that we'd like have the cards on it in the IRC chat where people would use TNM to simulate the cards with all of the different people from the board all being their own character and stuff. So yeah, TNM, it was made by a German guy and I never hear people talk about it now because I don't know if it kind of I think it was replaced by EWR. EWR was a little bit more out there and maybe a little bit better programmed. I'm not sure, um, but yeah. So I was briefly into that world, um, but honestly, like I liked some wrestling video games. I played all the classics, and I still have all the Nintendo 64 games and like some of the Fire Pro games. But like, I really haven't even played a wrestling video game in like 20 years. So
There's nothing different. I'll be honest. I for a long time, honestly, too long. I fell for the like the WWE game came out. I'm gonna buy it just by default, and like by like 23 or 24, 2023, 2024, I think I just finally went, it's the same fucking thing. It's the same thing with like Madden for people
yeah,
that are super into Madden. It's the same fucking game. Like
yeah,
you're just buying the new
you're
uniforms
getting
that,
the roster updates
ugh,
basically, right? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So I totally get that, dude. And again, like especially in your instance when you're on the road and stuff, it's like you did not have time. I'm not even on the road. I don't do anything but like work in this like nerdy little wrestling stuff I do. I don't have time. I have a wife,
yeah.
like I gotta actually be a husband too. So I don't have all this time.
I don't even like my wife insisted on buying us a Switch 2 when it came out. And I was like, we're never gonna play this. Honestly, we don't need this. She's got like a Switch Lite that she'll bring with her, like if we're like flying somewhere or whatever. But like unless we're traveling, she rarely even plays that at this point. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't, like hats off to the gamer. There's sometimes I see a game and I go, oh, that looks like fun. I would probably enjoy that, but I just don't have the time or like the monetary investment required to like get really into gaming at this point in my life. So, nonetheless, yeah, wrestling gaming. I occasionally get tagged or see like people making me in the games, and
Yeah.
that's cool. Some of them look a lot better than other ones, if I'm being
Oh,
honest.
yeah.
There's one that I found recently on Twitter where the guy gave me the biggest fucking forearms I've ever seen in my life. And like I famously do not have big arms. And kind of skinny arms, honestly. And I these forearms that you could like crush a like a cantaloupe with.
Yeah.
Like
Like, I don't think I ever had the
I
Popeye
don't
look,
think I
but
was ever
I'll
that
take it.
jacked, but like, okay, cool. Thanks, man, for making me look like I'm
Yeah.
like for Igno or something. That's a really dated reference, but
I get it. So
yeah,
hey,
yeah. Anyways,
yeah. So you it's so funny how this is another one talking about how the internet like changes and everything, like how we like cage match, right? And how people go to it as like this big reference. And it is phenomenal. And I'm never gonna throw shade at cage match. It's very helpful. But it's also like you can't live by it because there is such a gap with you. And I know for a fact that you didn't just hit the ground running in 3-2-1 battle professionally, right? So like what are some of the like early like when you finally were like, all right, I'm a pro wrestler. We're not doing the backyard stuff. Like what are some of like the early places that you really went to before 3-2-1 battle?
I kind of did hit the ground running with 3-2-1 back.
Damn.
Yeah. So like, there's like my pro debut is on there in
Mm-hmm.
2003, and that's
Yes.
only because I posted about it on the anniversary, and I think
Okay.
Striga saw it. Striga, who I've met on occasion and have conversed with. So like
Great dude.
Striga saw it and added it. So like there's this gap between my debut in 2003 and then the first 3-2-1 result that's on there is 2014.
Yeah, dude.
And honestly, I maybe had 5 independent matches in that gap,
Okay.
maybe, because I worked a handful of local independent shows in 2004, and then we were like, "Oh, this sucks. Let's go back to doing backyarding." Right? So like
Yeah.
in that gap, there's like at least 200 backyard matches,
There we
probably.
go.
Right? So that especially for the first couple years. So like our first backyard promotion that I ran with my friends Scott Henson and all of our crew, we ran regularly from 2001 until 2009.
Wow.
And in our like real like busiest period, 2005, 2006, we would run like 60, 70 shows a year. Like, yeah, every single weekend and sometimes multiple, like a Saturday and a Sunday. Sometimes this only happened like once or twice. We ran multiple shows on the same day. And so, like, there was one, this was the wildest one. We ran our regular, like, Saturday afternoon show, and then we were all done, packed up, whatever. We
Yeah.
went out for dinner. We went to see a movie. Movie's out, and we're all sort of like, we're just having a good day. Like everyone's just vibing and having a nice time hanging out. And they're like, I don't want to go home and go to bed. Like, what can we do just to keep the good times? None of us like did drugs or drank or did anything either, right? So like,
Yeah.
um, and so someone's like, let's go back to the school and run another show. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and we're like, all right. So we went back and like quickly booked it on the fly, just like, okay, everyone, let's just do like a fun comedy show. 3 or 4 matches, everyone doing alternative gimmicks, like some, like
Yeah.
so. Yeah, we were backyarding so much, and like 3-2-1 only came about because it was run by friends of ours who we knew through backyard stuff, and they kept bothering us to come down and work these shows. 3-2-1 came out of a promotion called SSP, which did not stand for Shooting Star Press. It stood for Seattle Semi Pro Wrestling,
Nice.
and they would run these monthly shows at a dive bar in the South Lake Union neighborhood of Seattle called the Rebar, which went out of business in the last couple of years. And they would run them on Wednesdays typically, and they would just be on the stage in the bar with um like maybe one like little gym mat in the center of the stage. But it was basically like a precursor to like the no ring kind of phenomenon that took over in the late 2010s, right?
Yeah.
with a lot of what like Casanova Valentine was doing on the East Coast, and Suburban Fight was doing on the West Coast, and I think Time Bomb was doing some of that stuff in the Midwest, or the Dakotas or whatever. So it's kind of a precursor to that, although it was definitely more gimmick heavy than those are more like brawl heavy, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we were like, fuck that. Not interested. Are you kidding me? I'm not driving to Seattle on a Wednesday night to wrestle on with no ring. Like call us when you get a ring, basically, is what our attitude was, which is hilarious in hindsight because
Right.
that stuff got so popular, right? And then it wasn't until 2014 that they got a ring. And so in 2014 they got a ring and they started running on Fridays, and we're like, all right, we're in. And so then 321 ran monthly from December 2014 until October 2015, so a little under a year. And then from that point on, they ran bi-weekly. And pretty much without fail, from the end of 2015 until March 2020, when the promotion went out of business, the pandemic happened, all sorts of stuff went down. But so what are we talking? A little over 4 years. They ran every other Friday without fail. And
Damn.
and I wrestled more matches than any one person did in that promotion. I know because I'm a nerd who has done the math and like submits a lot of stuff to cage match. So
Nice.
I had 105 matches in 3-2-1 battle over the years, and like I'm not
Okay.
even from Seattle. It's probably one of the reasons why everyone assumed that I was from Seattle. Um but yeah, so that was honestly that was it. And I at that point it was just sort of like this is the next transition from like, okay, we're too old to backyard now. These shows finally seem appealing to us. Let's start working these shows. And then it was through working those shows, because initially those shows, it was a lot of people that were not well trained. It was still like kind of a variety show, and it was a lot of gimmicks, just like not a lot of good in ring work. And then those shows started to get a little bit better as they used more and more local talent from elsewhere. And then, yeah, it was from there where people started seeing me regularly on those shows that I got booked. I started getting booked up here. Like it was so funny. I wasn't even getting booked in the north in Greater Vancouver until I really made a name for myself in Seattle and elsewhere. And it wasn't maybe I wasn't trying that hard either, but eventually, then that's kind of what separated me from a lot of my crew, was that I was trying hard, and I was reaching out to promoters, and I was sending matches, and I was trying to improve as an in-ring wrestler. And that's when, like, after the first Thatcher match in the summer of 2017, it was like a light bulb clicked of like, oh, this is the wrestler that I want to be, and I'm gonna like do everything in my power to work this style, this in-ring style, and get better at it, and work, you know, literally every good technical wrestler in North America. Um, Pretty much, like I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a couple people I missed, but for the most part, I knocked them all off. There's a couple people I missed that I would have liked to have wrestled in Japan or Mexico. But
Of course.
I that all sort of stemmed from there. But yeah, no, I've seen other people complain like, oh, fucking cage match, like it's missing 10 years of this guy's career. It's not missing any of my career.
You're like, they're right here because,
They're right here. If you want to add all the backyard things, then there's another 200 plus matches. But
which honestly, that somebody's got to get on that, right? Like, I don't know how the hell that would even work, but surely.
well, I don't know if that belongs on a place like Cage Match, but
No.
we so my I keep referencing him, but like Scott Henson, who ran our backyard promotion and got trained at the same time as I did and worked independence as the Big Cat Scott Henson for many years. He passed away a little over 2 years ago now, and he maintained a website that had all of our results and all of the video footage of like a decade's worth of backyard wrestling. And When he passed away, some of our friends archived it, and so they have them on their hard drives. But it was earlier this year that whatever he had, his subscription with whatever hosting service finally expired. And so his website is no longer live and active. So we've been like toying with the idea of putting it back up somewhere because it's such a good resource and it's such a pain in the ass because like I have friends of mine from that era who text me and are like, when did this happen again? And who did I wrestle on this show? And I used to
Yeah.
be able to just bring it up on my phone and be like, oh yeah, here you go, copy paste. This is exactly when it happened and whatever. And now I have to be like, oh my god, when did this happen? And like the other problem, I mean, like obviously I'm sad that my friend died, but like he was the only other person who had as good of a memory for this stuff as I did. And so if I didn't remember when something happened or the details of something that happened, I could just text him and ask him. And unfortunately, obviously, I can't do that anymore. But yeah, and so a lot of that footage has started to creep up onto YouTube. One of our crew has started uploading it. On YouTube, although it's kind of poorly labeled. And like I said, we have it archived, but it's not online for easy access at this point. So
Yeah, I just, man, that is one of those things that when the more I talk to wrestlers, the more that are just like, yeah, backyard, man, that's their thing. And like either, like you said, like an Eric Stevens, a lurker, which is cool to think about, like these active pro wrestlers. Like, whoa, hold on, let me fire up the YouTube and see what these backyarders are doing for an idea. Makes complete sense though. Um, it is kind of crazy to look at your cage match going back to that, because it's like you go from, like you said, 3-2-1, 3-2-1. You got like every now and then you'll do like a WAC or a local fed here and there, and then we see spring 2019
yeah,
and it's just boom. We start with all kinds of stuff. My favorite is the GCW Orange Cassidy show that you were on, which this is a crazy multi-person match here. Eric Royal, who, man, I have grown to love that guy and his work. I wish I would have been tapped in when he was active, but Faye Jackson, Red Eagle, and Tara Calloway and Wheeler Yuta against yourself, Jeff Cannonball, Sage Phillips, another guy that I have like become obsessed with since watching his stuff, Shaza McKenzie, and Veda Scott.
yeah. I mean, it's the funniest thing is that's literally the only time I ever worked for GCW.
I
Um,
figured.
yeah, there was times where it felt like it was going to happen, and I obviously had people who were pushing to get me on shows, but it never happened. But that tag match was the byproduct of a different show that was supposed to happen that weekend that was promoted by Nova Pro Wrestling out of Virginia, which it was supposed to be me and Eric Royal on that show, which that became like a running joke of like the match that was supposed to happen that kept getting canceled
Yes.
because it was supposed to happen then, and then it was booked for a different promotion the following Mania weekend in Tampa, which obviously was canceled because of the pandemic. And then it did eventually happen the following year, and it actually happened 3 times that year: once in Tampa, once in Chattanooga, and once in Atlanta. Um, and I loved wrestling Eric Royal, and he's making a bit of a comeback. I don't know if he's
Thank
gonna.
God.
I don't know if he's gonna work much outside of his region. He's based in the Carolinas, but I always loved working with him. We just sometimes you meet people and you just click with them, and you can have just like some of the most like amazing matches with doing very little talking or planning. You're on the same page as these people. Another person who I met like that who is also severely underrated is Jeremy Wyatt from Kansas
Yeah.
City. Um, and I got to wrestle him finally in 2021 as well. But yeah, that 10-man tag just happened as like these are a bunch of the people that were supposed to be on that Nova Pro show who are now going to be on this thing. And none of us knew what the dodgeball thing meant until we literally got there and we're like, what are we doing? Like, are we actually gonna have dodgeballs? The other person who's not in the result that you're seeing, but is actually a part of the match, so to speak, is MJF, which
Oh my
is
god.
because like I've it's on my YouTube channel if you want to see it. If you haven't seen it, I ripped it within the last year and put it on my YouTube channel. But we literally do schoolyard picking
It's awesome.
teams sort of vibe with everyone getting different colored little pennies that you put over, to like distinguish what team you're on. And MJF is the odd man out. He doesn't get picked for either team. And so he literally takes the dodgeballs with him and he goes home and pouts about it, sort of thing. And he was so incredibly funny in that match. So yeah, it's a great match. I mean, it's just fun popcorn, 8 minute, 10-man tag. Everyone gets their shit in. There's a lot of comedy. Wheeler Yuta takes a dodgeball and he throws it straight at me from the top rope to the floor before he is to dive onto like the pile of us who are catching him. And I don't think he was trying to do it, but he literally hit me square in the junk and then
Uh,
dove out onto us. And I had to be like, oh shit, I gotta catch this guy now. And he's someone who's deceptively big. Like you see him on TV, and it's sort of like, oh, Yuta's not that big of a guy because he's, in AEW next to Claudio Castagnoli and and
yeah,
and John Moxley, right? But Yuta's Yuta's actually a pretty big guy. So that match is a lot of fun. Check it out on YouTube if you've never seen it. You or the people watching this. But yeah, that was a part of that weekend was like the thing that really opened the floodgates. It was a lot of people's first times seeing me. I worked 4 shows that weekend, not only for GCW, but also for Black Label Pro, for Interspecies Wrestling, and for Pizza Party Pro Wrestling, main eventing their first show ever against Fred Yehai, who is another person who is incredibly underrated, although he's kind of lost his mind. Um,
yeah.
but
Man, I love me some Fred Yehai though back in the day.
He's so good. He's so good. And I love that match. And we never got to run it back, unfortunately. But that match is really, really good. Aubrey, Aubrey Edwards from AEW is the referee of that match. She honestly was someone that I worked with a lot when she was first breaking in and starting to get out a little bit. And I've never seen someone work as hard as she did in her first like year and a half of being in the business. And like she deserves all the success that she has now, but she's someone I loved working with, and she refereed like a lot of my really good matches for a stretch. And then she was able to come back and she refereed my match with Zack Sabre years later too. So that was that was very cool. That was like a full circle moment for sure. So yeah.
It's very nice when you can have those little like, tie up those loose ends sort of for yourself. You know what I mean? It's like for you to know that.
Yeah, and I think for her too, like she got to
Yeah.
referee the first not the first, but the first Danielson Sabre match in a while, the one they had on AEW pay-per-view in Seattle. And I could have gone to that show and I chose not to, and I really in hindsight wish I had gone. But yeah, she got to referee that match and she sent me a nice little message beforehand saying, like getting to referee you all those years has really kind of set me up for success to do it, with the maybe the two best guys at the style in the world, so that was a very nice, thoughtful thing of her to say. And then in hindsight, a couple months later, she got to referee me and Zach as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And of course, I mean, we're talking about 2019. It's the SCI tournament. And, you know, I love everything about the 2019 SCI because I think it was so structured very, very soundly in the sense that it really was the dark horse goes all the way. I think that's what I really love about it because you know, I had known of you, thankfully, at this point from 3-2-1 battle, just like weird videos. Like I'm pretty sure, um, well, now I'm not sure because I know it's from 2019. Is your Gresham match before or after that? It is before. Okay.
It's before the SCI. Yeah,
By a
it's
little
from
bit.
April of that year. Yeah.
So that is absolutely how I probably knew about you as a wrestler. I'd heard your name for years, but when I finally was like, "Oh, Daniel Makabe, a fully formed wrestler," in front of me on footage, would have been that. And so, like, a lot of people did not know you going into that, and I do know from talking to like Jaden and stuff, he's like, no dude, it was beautiful to see that weekend where there were a lot of people in the crowd that were like Daniel Makabe, and then you win and it's like Daniel fucking Makabe. So how wild was that weekend?
That I mean, that weekend is crazy. Like, there's so much logistic issues with that weekend that like has been discussed, but like not everyone necessarily knows. You know, like I was supposed to have a flight out. I think it was supposed to be a red eye from Seattle to Charlotte, and then Charlotte to Chattanooga, and I would have gotten in like the morning of, but the flight to Charlotte was canceled. I think Tony Deppen similarly was supposed to fly just through Charlotte, and that got canceled on his behalf too. So I was literally just like in Seattle waiting, like hanging out with friends, waiting for like the go from the SCI guys being like, okay, this is your new flight, go to the airport kind of thing. And I ended up, I think I had a real like a 5 a.m. flight from like Seattle to Phoenix, and then Phoenix to Atlanta. And then I
Oh,
literally had to take a shuttle bus from Atlanta up to Chattanooga. And then I got randomly dropped off in the. I don't know if you've ever been to Chattanooga. It's
unfortunately not yet.
it's really spread out. It's like for a city of its size, it's like one of those things where like, oh, I'm in this part of Chattanooga. I need to get to that part of Chattanooga. It's going to take 30 minutes. And it was like,
Yeah.
how in a city of this size is that possible? But so like I got dropped off at a random bus station. I was picked up by a then unknown one called Manders,
Oh, nice.
who was doing futures that weekend, and he
Yep.
actually won futures that weekend, and uh got to meet him and hang out with him a little bit, and basically he just like raced me to the building, and by the time I got to the building the show had already started. um and I just remember people telling me after the fact, because Harley Race had passed away a couple days before, and they did a 10 bell salute to Harley Race in ring with everyone on the show there to show their respects, and there was people being like, where's Daniel Makabe? He's not. He's not in the ring with all the other people in this tournament, and it's because I wasn't there yet. And and yeah, I literally showed up as the first match was going on. Thankfully, I was on second to last with Tony Deppen, someone who I had never wrestled with, but was very good, as one can attest to. And we were able to just throw things together very easily without much effort or thought, and go out and have the match that we had. And uh people, that's like a famous like folk tale of people from that area, of like everyone who was sitting on the floor for the most part, they knew who I was and they were all in on me, sort of thing, and they were invested. But as the match was progressing, you could tell the people in the bleachers, the more casuals, they were starting to get more invested. And by the time the match ends, the entire room is like, oh my God, that was amazing. And um, that's all anyone could talk about that night at the the after party, was me and Deppen. And honestly, it's what led to me winning the whole thing, because I don't know that that was necessarily the plan from the get-go. I mean, I know it wasn't, right? And it was like when the powers that be saw the reception that match got and how good it got over, they're like, okay, this seems like the direction to go, you know?
Yeah.
And then like I didn't find out until, the next day, when they basically took the four winners of the semifinal matches, so the four finalists, they took us all aside into a room and sort of, they were very nice about it, but kind of one by one explained like, sorry, you three guys are not the winner because Dan is, and it was like, oh, okay. Like
Yeah.
crazy. Um, and it almost didn't happen because I was originally supposed to lose to Tony Deppen in round one
Wow.
and work a non-tournament match on day two against Mike Quackenbush,
Oh my God.
who was scheduled to do a seminar that weekend, and he was going to do a Q&A with like the fans that you could like pay how $10 and sit in and do a Q&A with Mike Quackenbush, and then he was going to have an unannounced open challenge on night two, and it was going to be, everyone saw when that was booked and said, well, Dan's the logical opponent for that, and I probably was.
Sure.
uh, but yeah, but then a couple weeks beforehand, Quack got hurt. He pulled out of the entire weekend, and the rest is history. And he's one of the few people that there's a couple other bullets that I dodged of people that I was supposed to
Uh-huh.
wrestle that didn't happen for one reason or the other, who then in hindsight I would be like, oh man, I had a really good match against this guy we can't talk about anymore, or we can't talk about them in a positive light anymore.
Right.
um, because there was a couple other ones similarly in that time frame of people that I was supposed to work that didn't end up happening. So um, but yeah, it's pretty crazy how it all came to be, and not to mention the fact that I split my ear open in the
Oof.
semifinal, and like that's all a shoot. What I get laid out in the final, and then I have to come out right at the end. It's because my ear, like my lobe, was barely hanging on, and they didn't
Yeah.
think I should go out there and work a full match. So we kind of gimmicked it so that AC Mack got the heat for laying me out, and then I got to make the big comeback at the end and win it. But
It was beautiful, man. And
yeah, that weekend is a special one for sure. Yeah.
I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the way that you ended the weekend in Chattanooga, and that was doing a knockoff of Hot Ones with Jaden Newman.
Yes.
And it is so entertaining, folks. You gotta
I
go.
haven't I haven't watched it in years. I
It's
haven't watched it.
good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's on
Jaden,
it's on IWTV. If you've never seen it, it's called 10 Count,
yeah.
which that's a fun name, like a wrestling
Yeah.
hot ones knock, 10 wings, 10 count. Like, I mean, that's maybe more of of a boxing, I guess. But there's 10 counts, like count outs in pro
Yeah.
wrestling as well. But yeah, Jaden, who had never had, I think he said he had never had like sriracha or anything or something, like he'd never had hot
Yeah.
sauce before. And that wasn't I met Jaden earlier that year. He came to New Jersey for Mania weekend, but that was the first time I ever got to really be around him much was that weekend. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun until I got to the. Are you much of a hot food guy or?
I dabble, but I don't like being in pain, you know?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like some hot stuff, and it's honestly harder for me as I get older, which is like such a old person thing to say. It's like, oh, I got indigestion
Yeah.
now or whatever. But um, I was good. I maybe the video says otherwise. You watched it recently, but like I felt pretty okay for the first like 7 or 8 of them. Like they really didn't bother me that much. And I did
Yeah.
cauliflower. I didn't. I obviously I didn't do wings. And but the bomb beyond insanity, which I think was the ninth one that we did in that video, the worst thing I've ever eaten in my life. Not hands down. It was brutally hot for no other reason than being hot. So yeah,
You can tell too, because you just like go from being you're good to like at one point you're like, it's so fucking hot, I don't feel my ear anymore. And I don't know if it's good or bad.
yeah, yeah. I remember that.
Well, but yeah, I mean, what a crazy, and I feel like, you go from that, and I'm seeing this and I'm going, holy shit, I really didn't put this together. So you go from that weekend to the very next weekend, you're in Toronto for this like WXW Toronto loop.
Yeah,
That's got to be crazy too. It's like, oh, cool. So I went from like being a Pacific Northwest guy to like, all right, I'm in the shit now. We're going.
Basically, yeah. And like WXW, at that point, I knew that I was going to Germany in the fall. Like I had made those arrangements already. And then this Toronto thing came up, and they were like, "Oh, you're in Canada. Do you also want to come and do these shows as well?" And then when I only had like two matches. I was booked to be in an Ambition tournament there, and then it was literally like the week before that they were like, "Oh, there was a cancellation on the OWE show. Do you want to have a singles match with Shima?" I was like, yeah, okay, that's crazy. And then
Yeah.
literally, I was there in Toronto. I had nothing. I had an off day, and they were like trying to get a hold of me all day there because there was a cancellation for a four-way match on another one of the shows that I literally got booked on with like 30 minutes notice, basically. Like, so yeah, that weekend was crazy, and August. I think I was like that week. I was like the cage match wrestler of the week. Like,
Oh yeah, dude.
I I got the rub that weekend. Yeah, and then from August 2019 on through to March 2020, it's
Yeah.
like it's nonstop. Basically, it's like the busiest I ever was as an independent wrestler, for sure.
Yeah, you're like all over the place here. You worked for Riptide, respect there. A weird promotion that my aforementioned best friend who is kind of in and out on wrestling, he came to me one day and was like, "Do you know anything about Riptide?" And I'm like, "Are you talking about the promotion in the UK?"
I love Riptide. I miss
Yeah.
Riptide so much. Tom, who's one of the guys who ran Riptide, he is starting up a new promotion in Brighton. They've run two shows so far, I think, and it's just like a no ring promotion
Hmm.
that just has some mats in like a tiny little hall. But they've sold out their two shows so far. I do not remember what it's. Maybe it's called Brightside. Um, and a lot of the people who worked Riptide shows are working those shows. Like the main event of the first show was Jordan Breaks versus TK Cooper. So I mean, those are guys that I met that one time I got to work Riptide. Riptide, they were just so nice, and they had vegan catering, and they had
Beautiful.
like a masseuse backstage and a barber backstage, and like they had so many just like little details to like take care of the wrestlers. And Brighton is like I've been to the UK a bunch, and like there's a lot of parts of the UK that I really love, but I think Brighton is my favorite city I've ever visited in the UK. It's such a cool town that I'd love to go back to. So yeah, Riptide is truly missed for sure, and I love the two matches that I had in Riptide, and especially I'm so thankful in hindsight that I got to work with Matt Kurt in Riptide because he subsequently passed away a couple years later. Um, I was originally supposed to have a singles match with Chris Brooks in Riptide.
Wow.
I know. And then the card had to be shuffled because there was a couple guys who ended up getting taken to an NXT UK taping. So they bailed on Riptide to do that. I think one of them is the kind of handsome Mimi guy who is maybe with the Miz now, or
Okay, Wilson. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think it's one of those guys.
Oh,
So like good hats off to him.
good
He
for
made the
him.
right decision probably. But
Yeah.
him doing that meant I didn't get to have a singles match with Chris Brooks. So fuck you.
Oh, dude, I am all about that. Would have been my wheelhouse, man.
I
That's
mean,
like,
I got to team with him instead, and so it was me and him as a team against Mad Kurt and Rob Lias. Um but yeah, it would have been cool to have a singles match with Brooks because he's basically been in Japan this whole time since then. Like he never comes back and does. I think he's done the occasional UK shot. Like I think maybe they ran a Schadenfreude show, but like he never comes to North America.
no.
Um, and he's really good. I'd love to. I would have loved to have had a singles match with him. Unfortunately, it's wasn't in the cards. But yeah, Riptide, great promotion, and I got to work for countless great promotions in that stretch. Like it was,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was. And then the
The
pandemic had to go
Five.
and ruin it all, but that that happens.
Oh yeah, and it's crazy. Well, yeah, because in this stretch you also have the first of the Kevin Koo matches, which, obviously ends up being your last match with Kevin years later. Um it is a shame when I think about the pandemic and how it like really sort of like hit the brakes. I don't know if anyone's brakes went to a screeching halt more than yours, because right as that hit, you felt like, okay, this is the next dude coming up on the independent scene. Like he's going to be everywhere.
I think, and so it's like it's funny, because like I had some real nagging injuries in that stretch, and so I had bookings through early May of 2020. Actually, the first time I was supposed to wrestle Nicole Matthews would have been in May of 2020, which didn't end up happening, obviously. And, then years later, we would have four matches in the span of like 2.5 years. And she's like one of my favorite opponents ever and one of my favorite people to be around. But the first time we were supposed to wrestle was in May of 2020. And I was going to take most of the spring of 2020 off. I was going to wrestle her in May, and then my next booking wasn't going to be until SCI, which would have been, the end of July or beginning of August. I can't remember.
Hmm.
And so when the pandemic happened, I was sort of like, okay, I need time to recharge anyways. I was going to take this time off. So now everyone has to take this time off, and we're all going to be on a level playing field, right? It works better for me, right?
Hmm.
Unbeknownst to me, it would go on for as long as it did. And there were no independent wrestling shows here in British Columbia, or there were some in British Columbia. Here in Vancouver, there were no independent shows for 18 months.
That's
So,
insane,
and
man.
even in Seattle, because, like these are fairly liberal places that had like good guidelines in place for people's health and safety, right?
Yeah.
So there were no shows in Seattle or Vancouver for like 18 months basically. So but yeah, WrestleMania weekend 2020 in Tampa, I think had that weekend happened and the pandemic not happened like it did, I think I would have blown up and I would have been everywhere. Because and like maybe that's just like hindsight is 2020, and who's to say. I obviously would have had to deliver in ring, but scheduled for that weekend, I was supposed to wrestle Eric Royal, which, ended up happening eventually. I was supposed to have a rematch with Fred Yehi.
Oh,
I was
nice.
supposed to have a rematch with Jonathan Gresham.
Oh,
I was supposed to do a WXW Ambition tournament, and I was supposed to wrestle Nick Gage.
oh my fucking god. That would have been the coolest stretch of shit.
And all of that had been announced, except I don't think the Ambition stuff had been announced yet. But everything else had been announced, and none of it happened except for I got to eventually wrestle Eric Royal. But
Hey, there is that, and that was a
there
hell
is
of a
that. But
deal.
I never got to have another match with Gresham, which is that one's a bummer. I would have liked to have done that for sure. Yeah.
That's another guy very much like you that for whatever fucking reason like responded to me. And I've had a lot of really good conversations with that guy. So uh God, you guys, like a year after the first one, you would have like torn it up because of just where both of you would have been as well as wrestlers.
Yeah.
Because he leveled up huge in ROH. So yeah. And I mean, you mentioned Ambition. You won Ambition 12
I
as
did.
the
That was
champion.
literally as the world was ending. I won Ambition
Literally.
12.
Yeah, March 7th. And you know what's really weird about all this is for me, not that anyone cares, but it's a fun little anecdote. You probably were freaking out because you're like, am I going to get trapped in a foreign country? Like, I mean, there's worse things in the world than being stuck in Germany, but damn.
You know what? I wasn't concerned one bit. My
Right.
my my mom and my girlfriend, now wife, were very concerned. They're like,
Yes.
"You're gonna get stuck over there. They're not gonna let you back into Canada." I'm like, "I'm pretty sure they're gonna let me back into Canada. It'll be fine."
For me, I was on my first wedding anniversary in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And we're doing the shit. Everything's cool. And then like the day before we were supposed to leave was the big which is funny now that this was like this big moment, but when Rudy Gobert
Yep.
had gotten it and the NBA said, fuck this, we're closing shop. I remember sitting there, oddly enough, watching Dynamite as well. I think that was the same day. And I remember me and my wife just looking at each other and going, the Airbnb was kind of underwhelming. We've done everything we needed to do. Let's get the
Yep.
fuck out of here. And
Yeah.
like literally, as we're driving from there to Florida, where we live, it's like you see the fucking signs like this is closing, that's closing. We're getting alerts on our phone. It's like, damn, we
Yeah.
dodged a bullet.
Yep.
So this is what's crazy. So you come back home, or no, actually, this is what's weird. So you go from Germany to the UK. So now I'm
Correct.
seeing it's got to be even more like, fuck. What am I do? What's gonna happen?
You know what? The UK was like very like, we'll see how it is. We're not
Of
convinced
course.
it's anything yet. So I had 3 matches in the UK,
Hmm.
and none of which I've ever seen. They were all pretty good too. One in particular, the one against Russ Taylor, was really good. Um, and then I flew to Ireland, and I was supposed to wrestle the then OTT heavyweight champion, who subsequently got canceled later that summer.
Uh-huh.
Um, a very liberal fella from Philadelphia. Um, and
Hmm.
uh, but my flights couldn't get scheduled around, so I literally sat in a hotel room for a day, waiting for my flight back to Canada. So, because everything was closed in Ireland. So, and then subsequently, this past June, um, was the first time I'd been back in Ireland, and I actually got to experience the country a little bit and see Dublin, and it was going to the wedding of two people that I met, one who's from Ireland, one who's from Tennessee, who were big fans of mine, going to shows in the South and Europe, and they invited me to their wedding. So my wife and I went. So
That's so cool. Yeah, I saw when you had gotten back, you're smart, so you don't post things till you're home. And I was just like, dude, that is so cool.
yeah, it was cool. I also chopped a drunk uh, guest at the wedding at the behest of at the behest of one of the bridesmaids who really wanted me to do it. So, and that was
Okay.
literally, it was like a walk off. Like if you're a baseball, like a walk off is when you hit, get a hit and score the winning run, and then you literally walk off the field, right? And it was literally, I chopped this guy into next week, and then I grabbed my wife and we walked out the door. And that was like,
That's so sick.
we're not going to top that. That's going to
Let's
be
get the fuck out of here.
let's leave. So yeah,
You don't wrestle until October, and I have never seen this match. I will be
you've never seen
absolutely
this
loved.
match? It's on my
Dude,
YouTube again.
I don't. That's all I mean. Like, I've got the weirdest blinders in history. Like, how the fuck have I not seen Daniel Makabe against Lee Moriarty?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
had to have been a great one, man.
that's a great match, and I mean, it was when they did the collective in Indiana that year, and we all went against our best like intellect, because like none of us were vaccinated at that point, and a bunch of people ended up getting COVID that weekend. I did
Yeah.
not, thankfully. But yeah, and no one else booked me. Like, I reached out to other promoters running that weekend, and no one was interested. And the only reason I got a booking is because Sup, who are my guys, they were running, and
Yeah.
they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna book you and Lee, and it's gonna be the match of the weekend." And that was my goal. It was like, I'm going to fly to Indiana. I'm going to have the best match of anyone here this weekend. And it was one of them. I mean, some people probably think it was the best match. It was one of the best matches. Gresham also wrestled Lee that weekend. So, I mean,
Yeah.
they, they had a good one too. But yeah, that was frustrating. And it was frustrating because like I couldn't even see my girlfriend at the time because she's in Seattle and we couldn't drive across the border. So it was me flying to Seattle, spending time with her, and then flying to Indiana to have this match with Lee. And then I did that a couple times where I would take bookings in the States as a means to see my wife and also just scratch the itch. And
Right.
then when I got home, I had to quarantine for 2 weeks each time. So that was the trade off, unfortunately. But
Yeah, and I mean, another kind of similar situation when you talk about like hitting the ground running. Once it was like clear, okay, we can run shows on a regular sort of basis here. You just start knocking them out of the park. You wrestle Jaden at the family reunion show in Tampa, and then you get Eric Royal finally. This looks like the next day, yeah. And then you've got your break, afterwards. It did take a little while. There were certain outfits at the time that were running regularly, but like, as you remember, there was still a lot of like pensiveness here of like, ooh, maybe not so much. And then SCI 2021 happens. And I watched it today, Your Life of. I think it's, and I mean, I'm talking to you, but I legitimately, before we even did this, I think it's my favorite one. Other than maybe Kevin Koo. Maybe Kevin Koo's my favorite, but it's during this weekend. And
yep,
another one, so much like 2019. It's like you and Chattanooga have this weird magnetic force where it's going to be great matches. You're going to have a great showing, but you're going to get fucking busted open. There's going to be some fuckery that happens.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that wasn't intentional, but that it just made for a dramatic story. It made for a good photo, which I subsequently put on a T-shirt. Subsequently, was used as like the cover photo for a story that was written about me for KEXP, which is a really awesome radio station here in Seattle. I say here, I'm not in Seattle, but I'm in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And I had like ex girlfriends reach out to me being like, I can't believe your bloody photo is the front page of KEXP today. And, uh, and yeah, I mean, a lot came from that. And then obviously, I mean, that kind of continued on my progression of just my like love affair with Chattanooga, and that sort of made all the more sense in the world that that's why I wanted to have my final match ever at SCI. Like there's another SCI in there, 2022. That's
Mhm.
by that point I've hurt my back, and I didn't know how much more I had in me. I take like a long time off after SCI 2022. I get to wrestle my buddy Dom Guarini, and that's a fun match too. And then yeah, I took like 8 months off or something, maybe not that long, 6 or 7 months off.
That's a long
Um,
time, man. You didn't come back till February.
yeah, it's just the back injury, and honestly, the back injury really slowed me down. It definitely took away some of my tools. I definitely wasn't as good after the back injury. I had to learn to like um, work within my style a little bit more. And I had good matches after that. Don't get me wrong, but like I think from fall 2021 until I hurt my back in June of 2022, I'm one of the best independent wrestlers in the world, honestly.
Yeah.
And and then afterwards, yeah, there's definitely things start to slow down, and it wasn't until um, late in 2023, going into early 2024, that I knew, okay, it's time to wrap this up. I want to do things on my own terms. I want to get to SCI basically. Like SCI is in July this year. That's where I want to wrap things up. So 2024 is going to be the retirement tour, for lack of a better word. 2024, the year Daniel Makabe broke, as I titled it,
Yeah.
and I wanted to go to as many places as I could and wrestle as many friends, or have as many important matches as I could. And not all of them are amazing, but it's still there's some very high level matches in that stretch, and just some very important matches in that stretch for me. And then yeah, it all comes full circle of getting to wrestle Ku one last time, and he's someone who was one of my groomsmen that year in May of 2024. I got married, and Kevin Koo was one of my groomsmen in my wedding, and Dom Greeny was a guest at my wedding, and and so yeah, it was like a natural conclusion for everything. So
Yeah. And I mean, just again, I put him over earlier. I mean, how great is Kevin Koo and Dom as well, obviously. But I feel like Kevin Koo does not get enough credit for like how good he really is.
he's very good, and he was on a stretch, especially in like 2022 20 into 2023, where he started really to come into his own as a singles wrestler. He'll be the first person to tell you that like I influenced him dramatically on his in-ring work and how to improve his in-ring work. And uh, the aforementioned produce show that we were talking about that's happening in a well, pretty shortly actually,
Yeah.
uh, is Violence is Forever versus Cowboy Way. I'm so
Oh,
excited for that match. I love all those guys. So I've got to wrestle 3 out of the 4 of them. I didn't ever get to wrestle Manders, unfortunately, but
you wrestled
um,
Shire? I gotta find that.
Shire and I wrestled. It's on YouTube. And
Okay.
Shire is someone that I always wanted to have a rematch with because our first match was pretty good, but we knew that we had a better one in us. And there was even a time that I was in St. Louis, and Shire and I basically had a match pre-show, just screwing around in the ring with just all the other workers on hand watching. And even that match, I wish someone had filmed it because it was so much fun just working the mat with him. So I'm so I mean, not to get on a tangent, but like he's someone who I've been singing the praises of for years. And I'm so glad that he's finally getting his flowers and he's getting to travel all over. And him and Manders are a great tag team. And he's someone who's been good for a very long time. And now the rest of the world are starting to realize it. So, um, but yeah, who's the man? And but yeah, I'm so thankful that even though he hurt his knee the week before our match, and I think we could have had an even better match than we did if he was 100%. But even having to work around some of the things that we did, I love that match, and I don't have a ton of regrets that was my last match ever. So
I mean, I'm looking at your last month in the business, and I mean, this is like heavy hitter stuff. You have like your sentimental match with all your buddies, the tag match at SOS, where it's Sarian and Scott against yourself and Cade and Taliban, I believe.
Albane, not
Albane,
Taliban.
Jesus. Talk about butcher a name. That and another one, by the way, that I love about doing these, by the way, I leave my fuck ups in because I want everyone to realize how dumb I am. So that
I'm gonna send you a singles match that I had with Caden Talbane in 2018. That is, I think, the best match I ever had that no one talks about because nobody
no.
knows. No, you think that he's like an Al Qaeda sympathizer, but uh, but it's actually I think a name from the Darkstalkers video game series. I think it's a character from that video game series. Is where Talbane. I think it's John Talbane is the character, but
Oh,
and he's so but yeah, no one knows who Caden Talbane is, and like because he's never worked outside of Seattle or Vancouver, but he is so good. And our match that we had in 2018 it is clearly our best one ever. So, but yeah. Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
no.
We had the sentimental. That's my last match ever in Seattle or Washington. It was in Tacoma, and um, and even if I were to ever make a comeback, I don't think I'll ever wrestle in Washington State ever again because I think that one's got to be that's the last
Yeah.
one. So that's the last one there for sure.
And then one of the coolest matches that I've seen anywhere ever. It's you, Nicole Matthews, in the Lionsgate dojo with nobody there except for crew.
One person. It's
One
funny
person.
if you look at the cage match listing for it, it says attendance one, and that one person. I didn't expect them to be there, but I mean, it was Artemis Spencer who was the one
That,
person.
I was literally about to say Artemis Spencer.
It was Artemis Spencer, and I told him he had to be quiet. He couldn't make any sound.
You did a
He's like,
great
"Can I
job.
react? Can I cheer?" I'm like, "No, you can't. You can watch, but you got to be quiet."
No.
Okay.
I have put that match on to so many people, fans, wrestlers alike, because you guys really just like you went to the mat with it, man. And it is just it's pro wrestling.
Yeah. That was like it was a love letter to coming up as a backyarder, working a lot of matches in front of nobody but my friends.
Yeah.
It was a love letter to a really like kind of gritty style of wrestling that like guys like Gintaro are doing in Japan and Kenichiro Arai are doing in Japan. They're having these matches where it's like 99% mat base and it's just really gritty. It's a love letter to, in a sense, to battle arts, you know, where they would just have these visceral, like violent mat exchanges. And honestly, if I could work those kind of matches, and there's not enough people in this world who can work that kind of match, unfortunately. But if I literally could just do that for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have to retire.
Right.
So
Like you and fucking fighting detectives just permanently, dude.
don't tease me with a good
Oh, I'm
time, man.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Don't
gonna
don't.
your wife. I'm gonna be like the number one. Like your wife hates human being if I start talking about. Hey, brother, body's still alive.
I know, I know. I mean,
And you're
like
like,
I don't know how out there it is, but like I am chummy with Fuminori Abe. We do exchange DMs. Him and the astronauts did watch my final match live
that rules.
and sent me a nice message afterwards telling me how much they enjoyed it. So that was pretty cool. When
That makes me
sometimes
feel
it's
good.
it's pretty cool when fans tell you that things you did are cool, but it's occasionally, especially in that last year, I got some DMs from some other workers who I really respect telling me they were liking what I was doing, and it was like, oh wow, that's crazy. So
Oh, dude.
yeah.
And from there, you go back to Red Bank. Your match before your last one is intriguing to me as well because it's Darian Bingston, who I've spoken to on this here program. And I mean, as you know, he is all full of praise for you and I love that. And we talked about how he's very careful of not being like a tribute act to you. And he's like, not only is it something that I'm sure you told him about, but he's just like, I don't want to be like Makabe too. I just want to implement what he implemented into what I do. And I think he's done a tremendous job.
Yeah, there are times where I thought like maybe you're like flying a little too close to the sun, but for the most part, I appreciate that he's just trying to keep my spirit alive and he's trying to use some of my influences in what he does. And he's someone at a very early on, he reached out to me and asked me to help mentor him. And I thought, man, you're all the way on in the southeast. I'm all the way up here. Like, what does that even mean? You know? And and it's just sort of, I mean, our friendship just kind of blossomed from that where um I he's someone that I keep up with more than most as far as what they're doing, and I'll give lots of people advice and feedback, but I certainly go out of my way to give him advice and feedback on what he's doing, and uh, yeah, I mean, I knew months and months out when I one of those things. It's nice that I had some gravitas that I was able to make these things happen, but like, so I'm not saying that like every wrestler should do this, but like, and I went to SCI, said, I want my second to last match to be against Darian on the TWE show. SCI, night one. I don't want it to be in the tournament. I just want it to be a standalone main event, even though they had never done that. Like a night one main event that's unrelated
Yeah.
to
It's like
the
a thing.
tournament.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the night one main event or the final, right? And like, no offense. I mean, like Adam Priest winning that year was cool, but like not a full shadow over it, but enough of a shadow over it
Yeah.
that, you know, it was nice that it was like that's night one with the tournament kind of thing, right? So I I shot my shot and was like, this is what I want. Do it. So, yeah, I knew from a very far distance out that I'm like, Darian, who asked me to be his mentor, whatever, and then who I just had such a personal connection to. That's a very logical last match ever. Yeah.
And unlike most people, you've stuck to it. Obviously, we know the asterisks. It's you and Brian Daniels. It's not something I think that could never occur. Now, obviously, reports have come out that Danielson's trading, but I mean, this is Brian Danielson after all, right? And like the man doesn't seem human most of the time. I'm glad that you just straight up, right before anyone even could ask you, you're like, yes, there is a way that it happens. About like, I'm done. And then you're like, come on, bro. Like with you, I think you respect it from your perspective. It has to be something that crazy to tarnish the whole, well, not tarnish, but you know what I mean. Worthwhile.
Yeah. I've had people reach out and ask me about coming back, and it was like, which is fine. But I had to put that out there in the
Yeah.
moment because, I mean, he's the one who suggested it. It's not me, it's him.
Yeah.
That was just my retort, like, and that was an AEW Collision show in Vancouver, and I had people in the stands like coming up to me. Did you see what Brian's here too?
That's crazy, man.
Um, but uh, but yeah, no, I had like local promoters being like, "Hey, absolutely not!" Like, no, it's got to be something real special. If it's not Danielson, it's got to be something like I would never forgive myself over passing up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and like, there's not too many of those really. Been retired for over 2 years now, which is crazy. Time flies by.
Yeah, dude.
But at times, and I'm thankful that I have such a good facility and crew of people that I get to work out with here from time to time, and also just to try and impart some wisdom on to some of the newer generation of guys at the Lionsgate Dojo in Greater Vancouver. And for the time being, that's all it's going to
They're teasing all of us. Hey, somebody might have wrestled Daniel Makabe today.
We did, in fact,
Like Elliot too. He when I found out that he was working out with you, I was like, yeah, that rules.
staying and why I was able to like have another good match with Thatcher, have a good match with Saber, and like be like really frequently with Elliot and with Travis Williams
Oh,
here in partners putting me through my paces and keeping my cardio up and helping me just get reps in. So all over the place now. But I did roll with him maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. So but wants to train. He's at the school like 4 or 5 days a week, and he loves learning the style of wrestling that I
go.
And so it's worked out very well for both of us. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel like he's finally like, really like Casey Ferreira and um oddly enough, I'm kind of in tune with that scene for two different reasons. For like we've talked about, we did the Mystery Titans theater thing, and then I like put two and two together, and finally he was no, and he's like, yeah, man, like I'm like in the biz here, and so that was neat. And I started talking to you because of the Voices of Wrestling Discord, Guts Dozer,
Oh
Mark, who's a great. I love Daniel so much. I can't wait to see it. So, uh, they are really my tether to that area. I think being seen.
yeah. Yeah, it comes back to, I mean, it's all very secular to how this interview started off. We
Uh,
got to wrap. I got some
yeah,
laundry to do, but uh, yeah, it's all tale as old as time, as close as it's ever been with technology. There is still a very real reality separating this region from the rest of the world. And some people are realizing that they have to get out of the region if they want to be seen. Guys like Elliot, who we mentioned, who's going to Germany, currently in Japan, training with Tajiri and his promotion. And there's they're all over the place.
Liza
And
Hall and produce now.
Liza Hall in produce, yeah, she was in Montreal last weekend, and obviously she was in New York on subsequent shows in the future. So, yeah, there's a lot of killers here, and I can't wait for the rest of the world. Influence them for better or for worse in how I think they should wrestle.
Beautiful. So, in terms of places they can see what you're doing, obviously you have your band. I believe you pronounce. Call me the butcher with how bad I'm fucking up today, but
Yeah, old tax the Taliban.
no, I'm just gonna fucking DM you randomly. Tax a
Oh, I see
Taliban.
Tax the Taliban have a show coming up. Yeah.
Hey, brother.
Um. Sorry. Go ahead. Obviously, I'm still all over social media on Instagram and unfortunately on X, the Everything app. LMAKABE. And I still post about wrestling stuff. I'm a glory hound who still likes reliving his past. I was gonna make a really dated. Yeah, music stuff. My bands, Taxa, which does have a couple shows coming up in August here in the Greater Vancouver area, and then we're working on a show that has technically been announced but has not been publicized as much as it will be, which is going to be in October here in Greater Vancouver, and we are writing and performing an original score to the silent film from the 20s, the original Nosferatu.
Oh shit, dude. That's badass.
Yeah, so we've done that before with another band that I've been called Grief Walker, which has been very um, not productive for the last few years, although we recorded an album last year and maybe it'll come out this year. I don't know. If anyone wants to hear it, I'll send you a link. It's really good. Um, but Grief Walker had previously done this sort of thing. We did original scores or soundtracks for a couple German silent expressionist films, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Faust.
Oh,
And
we love all
then,
that shit.
and so, yeah, now Tax is getting to do the same thing, and we're doing Nosferatu in October. So I'll be posting all about that for anyone in the area. Obviously, not everyone listening to this is local to Greater Vancouver. I did have some fans from Seattle who just happened to be on vacation in Vancouver the weekend that one of my bands were playing, and they saw me post about it on Twitter and were like, "Yeah, okay, let's go see his band," and like showed up. So it has happened, and it is appreciated if anyone wants to come see my bands play. But we don't really play outside of the region, unfortunately. And then otherwise, yeah, that's kind of it. But if I'm up to anything, that's where you'll find out about it on Instagram or Twitter.
Yeah, and I, you don't even have to say it. Just if you want to hang out with him online, just Instagram. Let's get off the X. Let's try. I'm trying my big push to get all the wrestling people off that fucking thing. Let's just go to something else.
It's hard. It's
I know.
hard.
Breaking those habits, man. Wrestling
Yeah,
people are really habit people, I find.
yeah. I hate what that app has become, obviously, but there's also still some elements of that app that I really don't feel are recreated elsewhere. So,
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately,
Daniel, it was an honor. It was a privilege. Thank you for giving me way more time than you should have. But I appreciate it. So, everybody, until next time, have a good one.